So, does anyone still remember this? Did you know that back in February, even though nothing I say is financial advice, Gilbert Verdian, who by the way is the CEO and founder of Quant, he did mention how he was delighted to share that Quant had been selected for the Bank of England's synchronization lab as part of the RTGS future roadmap. Now, why does this matter? Well, it's because I think it showcases how Quant, it's a pretty diverse project. Again, I think this showcases an emphasis that it has in regard to the global trade and finance market, which some people may be thinking, Quant, like, why would it even be known for something like that? It can't handle something like a market, for instance, in the case of global trade and finance. Well, I kind of disagree with that because when it comes to projects out there that are usually really focused on global trade and finance, what is an aspect of a project within that space that usually people want to look for? They usually sometimes look for a project that have an aspect of ISO 20022. And of course, Ripple and Stellar, they're very well known for that. But guess what? Quant has an aspect of ISO 20022. So if it matters a lot when it comes to Stellar, when it comes to Ripple, and also in the case of XDC and also some other projects out there, why is the aspect of ISO 20022 randomly ignored when it comes to Quant, and then suddenly it's labeled as this project that can't really do anything in the global trade and finance space, whereas some other projects out there have an aspect of ISO 20022 and is really praised? But then why is it not in the case of Quant, usually, from what I can observe sometimes? I think it kind of showcases that maybe Quant isn't really known for that, but I think it doesn't mean that it is not equipped, right? Because I think Quant is actually perfectly capable of, let's say, being focused on a market like that, and it arguably kind of is. That's the way to take a look at it. So when it comes to Quant, I think that announcement back in February kind of showcased the diversity of the project, and I think it showcases just how Quant isn't necessarily just a random project that's useless. I disagree with that actually, because when it comes to Quant, I just think that even the aspect of the Quant network in and of itself is pretty interesting. Take a look at, for instance, there's the Overledger network and the Overledger OS. They are what makes up the Quant network. Now, the Overledger OS users, basically, they're what makes up the Overledger network. However, if I take a look at the Overledger OS more specifically, I want to actually explain why I think this right here could be such a total game changer for a lot of projects out there that are focused on various sectors, not only on just global trade and finance. Again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but the Overledger OS allows something called a multi-chain application to be built. Now imagine, right, as the name goes, multi-chain application. So it's an application that's built on top of multiple blockchains and not only just one. So if, let's say, I want to build a project that's focused on AI, or let's say global trade and finance, or whatever the case may be, wouldn't it be cool if I was a developer and I don't only have to be stuck building on just one blockchain? That'd be so amazing, right? Because imagine if, let's say, I can build an app that takes advantage of the security of the Bitcoin blockchain and also at the same time taking advantage of the speed of the Stellar blockchain. That I think is pretty cool. It's kind of like a best of both worlds type of scenario. And again, people like to say, well, it doesn't really matter. Well, again, if we take a look at developers out there that are focused on global trade and finance, or let's say AI, what do they want? They want something fast, and also they care a lot about security. Bitcoin historically is kind of known for its security. Stellar, historically, it's known for its speed. That's kind of like a best of both worlds type of scenario. I mean, imagine if they're stuck just on one blockchain. Because in my opinion, arguably, there is no quote-unquote perfect blockchain, right? So of course, if that is the case, sometimes there would be a need for multi-chain applications. Because again, if let's say I quote unquote find a blockchain that I like, no matter how much I like it, there might be some hypothetical drawbacks. So these drawbacks right here, sometimes it could hypothetically be supplemented through another blockchain. If let's say maybe I use the Overledger OS, that's the way to take a look at it. So I don't think that Quant is a useless project. Maybe it's not the most famous, but it's not useless, at least personally in my perspective. However, if I take a look at Quant as of right now, had a pretty good recovery actually as of late. Now in the past week alone, up almost 10%, which a lot of people like to say it's nothing really that much, but still a small victory nonetheless, considering how, it hasn't been doing the best for quite a while. And actually, surprisingly, in the past year, so in the past 365 days, it's actually up almost 11%. So yeah, I mean, it's had a pullback generally speaking though, but I'm saying when it comes to Quant so far, it's not really doing anything that's unheard of within this space. Like a lot of projects did pretty well in 2024 and 2025, and then of course they had a pullback. Take a look at Bitcoin, for instance. So it's not like Quant is doing anything out of the ordinary when it comes to the movement, but at the same time, I do like its recovery in the past 30 days and also in the past week. However, besides that point though, my kind of perspective as of right now is that, sure, I mean, Quant still around $75, but to me, I am in this kind of mindset where if Quant never ever goes back to its all-time high, I'm perfectly fine because we do know that, for instance, its all-time high is around $430. It's actually slightly less than that. So we're down quite a lot as of right now. We're down actually around 80% from that. But at the same time, do I really need it to go back there? No, not really. I mean, if Quant just goes back to like $140 at this point, I have zero complaints because I was dollar cost averaging the entire time when things were not doing the best. I've been dollar cost averaging once a month. So if it just goes back to like $140, I'm already going to Sizzler at that point. To me, $140 is not really an altcoin season territory anyways. So I don't really have a need for an altcoin season anymore at this point just because Quant had that pullback. Personally, in my mind, when it comes to Quant back in December of 2024, was that an altcoin season? I highly doubt that. And it was around $140 at that point. And that was just slightly over a year ago. Also, if we take a look at back in July, which isn't even a year ago, by the way, but again, July of 2025, Quant was around $120. So it's like, does anyone think July of 2025 was an altcoin season? I don't. But because Quant's pullback had been pretty extensive, it's at the point that if it returns back to like $120 or $140 or whatever, I'm already pretty happy anyways just because of the pullback when it comes to Quant. Because keep in mind, we saw Quant at below $60 just back in February. It was around $56 actually. So imagine if that goes back to like $140, considering that point, that's already almost 3 times lower than $140. So to me, when I take a look at just how low Quant was not that long ago and how, relatively speaking, even despite this slight recovery, it's still down by quite a lot. Personally, for me, if it just could go back to an original point it was at before, I'm already going to Sizzler. That's just kind of the mindset that I have. Now, ultimately, though, people like to say, well, a lot of people forgot about Quant. Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case because keep in mind, Quant has around 164,000 holders, slightly less than that, but that's pretty massive. Imagine other projects out there, the amount of holders just went down by quite a lot, but when it comes to Quant, that didn't really seem to be the case. It's still holding up pretty strong at around 160,000 holders. Personally, for me, I'm just holding, still waiting, and I'll see what happens, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But I'll be sure to make more updates when it comes to Quant moving forward. So hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's only the captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.